The Jungle's Surrender, From Defiance to Disbelief. January 15, 1945. Dawn cracks through the thick canopy of northern Luzon, Philippines. The air hangs heavy with the stench of rot and gunpowder, mosquitoes buzzing like enemy drones. Private Yamamoto crouches in the mud, his uniform a tattered rag clinging to his skeletal frame, rifle trembling and hands numb from weeks of hunger. His stomach claws at itself. Last meal was a handful of contaminated rice scraped from a muddy pouch, laced with pebbles and the faint bitterness of defeat. Around him his squad, what's left of them, huddles in silence, eyes hollow, waiting for the American advance they know is coming. The Imperial Army's orders echo in his mind: fight to the death, surrender is shame. But the growl in his gut whispers otherwise. Suddenly, the underbrush explodes. American GIs burst through, M1 Garands barking, tracer rounds slicing the humid air like fiery knives. Yamamoto's Corporal Sito fires back wildly, but his shots go wide. Night blindness from vitamin starvation has turned marksmen into ghosts. A grenade thumps nearby, showering dirt and screams. Yamamoto drops his weapon, hands rising instinctively as a burly Marine looms over him, bayonet fixed, face smeared with camouflage and sweat. "Hands up! Don't move!" the American bellows in broken Japanese, learned from a phrasebook. Yamamoto freezes, expecting the thrust, the end. But it doesn't come. Instead, the Marine lowers his rifle slightly, eyes scanning for tricks, then motions with his head. "Come on, you're done. Walk." You can almost feel the shock ripple through Yamamoto's veins. The enemy isn't finishing him off. No ritual disembowelment, no trophy ears like the rumors said. He's herded with 5 others, hands bound loosely with wire, marched through the steaming jungle to a clearing buzzing with activity. Tents flap in the breeze, radios clackle with commands. And the smell, oh, the smell hits him like a wave. Something savory, fatty, foreign. His mouth waters uncontrollably, a betrayal of his training. The Americans shoved them into a makeshift pen of bamboo and wire, guarded by MPs with Thompson submachine guns slung casually. "Sit tight," one says, tossing a canteen. Water. Clean, cool water. Yamamoto drinks greedily, passing it to Sito, who whispers, "This is a trick. They'll poison us later." But then comes the real assault. A mess sergeant approaches, a grizzled veteran from the 1st Marine Division, carrying a stack of small cardboard boxes stamped K-Ration, supper. He rips one open, dumping the contents onto a tarp. A can of pork luncheon meat, gleaming with fat, hard biscuits that look pristine, no rat droppings, a fruit bar wrapped in wax paper, instant coffee packets, sugar tablets that sparkle like forbidden jewels, even chewing gum and a pack of Lucky Strikes. The Japanese soldiers stare, uncomprehending. In their own army, a day's ration was 300 grams of uncleaned rice, if they were lucky, and a dried fish head boiled into thin gruel. Here, in enemy hands, this one box promises more calories than they'd seen in days. The sergeant gestures, miming eating. "Chow time. Eat up." Yamamoto hesitates, but hunger wins. He pries open the meat can with the provided opener, no scavenging for tools. The first bite, juicy, salty pork floods his senses, fat coating his tongue like a long-forgotten dream. He chews slowly, eyes widening. Beside him, Sito bites into the fruit bar, sugar exploding in his mouth. Real sugar, not the mythical 20 grams promised but never delivered by Imperial supply lines. A low murmur rises among the captives. One private, his face gaunt from beriberi, swelling, laughs hysterically, then chokes back tears. This is what they eat, every day. Another puffs on a cigarette, coughing from the rich tobacco, whispering, "The propaganda lied, they're not soft, they're invincible." As the sun climbs higher, baking the clearing, the Americans watch with a mix of pity and wariness. These were the same fanatics who'd bonsai charged their lines nights before, now reduced to wide-eyed children over a simple meal. Yamamoto feels a crack in his soul. The Bushido code that glorified suffering suddenly rings hollow. How could warriors starved into weakness compete with soldiers fueled like machines? But as he swallows the last of the coffee, bitter and strong, a darker thought creeps in. If this is captivity, what horrors await them when they learn the full extent of America's abundance? The march to the rare echelon stretches on, a blur of aching feet and guarded silence under the relentless Philippine sun. Yamamoto and his fellow captives, now a ragged column of 24, stumble along a dirt track carved by American bulldozers, machines that seem to devour the jungle itself, spitting out smooth paths where chaos once reigned. The guards, relaxed but vigilant, chat among themselves in that guttural English, sharing jokes that carry on the wind. One offers a canteen again, this time laced with something sweet, lemonade powder they call it. Sito sips warily, his face twisting in confusion. "Like nectar from the gods," he mutters, passing it back. Yamamoto nods, but his mind races. Back home, in the rice paddies of Honshu, such luxuries were tales from pre-war movies, not reality for soldiers fed on ideology and empty promises. They crest a hill and the camp unfolds below like a mirage in the haze, a sprawling grid of Quonset huts and barbed wire, flags snapping in the breeze, jeeps zipping between supply dumps stacked higher than a man's head. This is Camp O'Donnell, pre-purposed from a Filipino base into a POW enclosure for the U.S. Army's Pacific Theater operations. As they're processed, fingerprinted with ink that doesn't smear, delouched with powdery DDT that tingles the skin but banishes the eternal itch, Yamamoto catches glimpses of the impossible. Trucks rumble in, unloading crates marked U.S. Army Field Ration Type C, bursting with more cans, beef stew, hash, even cheese that melts in the heat. A radio blares swing music from afar, Glenn Miller's brass cutting through the tropical drone, while GIs lounge in the shade, munching on what look like candy bars wrapped in foil. Herded into a holding area, the group is met by Captain Harold Jenkins, an intelligence officer from the 37th Infantry Division, his uniform crisped despite the humidity, clipboard in hand. He speaks through an interpreter, a Nisei sergeant named Kenji Tanaka, whose Japanese is flawless, but accented with California slang. "You're prisoners now. No torture, no forced labor. Geneva Convention rules apply." The words hang in the air, met with skeptical stares. In the Imperial Japanese Army, surrender meant death or disgrace. Rumors of American brutality, vivisections, they said, had been drilled into every recruit. Yet here, no beatings. Instead, medics swarm in, checking for malaria, bandaging wounds with clean gauze, injecting penicillin that burns but promises healing. One soldier, Private Hara, his leg festering from a shrapnel gash, winces as the needle pricks, but the pain fades quickly. "This medicine, it's like magic," he breathes, eyes darting to Yamamoto. Then the real feast begins. Mess hall orderlies wheel out carts laden with trays. Hot trays, steam rising from mashed potatoes whipped with real butter, gravy thick as mud but savory, not the watery slop of Japanese field kitchens. Canned peaches glisten in syrup, bread slices soft and white, not the rock-hard biscuits molded with weevils. Coffee flows from urns, black and endless, with cream from powdered cans that turn it milky gold. The captives sit on benches, utensils clinking awkwardly. Forks and knives, not chopsticks dug from bamboo. Yamamoto spears a chunk of Spam, fried crisp on the edges, and bites down. Salt, grease, substance. It floods his senses, rebuilding strength he'd forgotten. Around him men eat in stunned silence at first, then with growing fervor. Sito leans over, whispering, "Remember Tsuji's lectures? The Americans are weak, decadent, but this is power." Word spreads quickly through the camp. High-ranking officers, segregated in their own quarters, share similar shocks. Colonel Lasanabu Tsuji, captured earlier in the campaign, paces his tent, confiding to aides over a shared Hershey bar. Tsuji, the infamous strategist behind Malaya's fall, had preached Bushido supremacy, but now he murmurs of America's bottomless well. In his diary, smuggled notes later revealed, he wrote, "Their rations alone could feed our divisions for weeks. Japan's supply lines are threads, theirs are rivers. Whispers ripple among the enlisted, tales of ice cream churned in machines, Coca-Cola bubbling cold from bottles, fruits flown in from Hawaii. One guard, in a moment of unguarded humanity, shares a comic book, its pages filled with colorful heroes, a stark contrast to the propaganda leaflets depicting Yankees as demons. You can imagine the internal storm. These men, indoctrinated to view surrender as worse than death, now grapple with comfort that mocks their sacrifices. Hara, recovering in the infirmary, overhears GIs boasting about home, farms producing wheat by the ton, factories stamping out cans faster than bullets. Doubt creeps in like jungle vines. Why fight for an empire that starves its sons while the enemy feasts? But as evening falls, lanterns flickering against the wire, a new tension builds. Interrogations loom tomorrow, and with them questions that could unravel loyalties. What if this abundance is just the bait, hiding a trap that breaks not the body, but the spirit? Dawn breaks over Camp O'Donnell, the jungle chorus of birds and insects, a mocking symphony to the captives' uneasy sleep. Yamamoto stirs on his cot, a real cot, canvas stretched over wood, not the dirt floors of foxholes back on the line. The air carries a new assault, sizzling fat, onions caramelizing, something doughy and warm. His nostrils flare, pulling him upright as guards unlock the barracks. "Chow line, fellas," one MP calls through the interpreter, herding them toward a long tent where steam billows from massive pots. Suspicion knots in Yamamoto's gut. This must be the trap, the softening before the blade. Sito exchanges a glance, his face pale. Remember the code, reveal nothing. They file in, trays thrust into their hands, metal trays, dented but clean, not the mess kits scavenged from dead comrades. Behind the counter, cooks in white aprons sling food with casual abundance, scrambled eggs fluffy and yellow, bacon strips crisp and fatty, toast slathered in butter that melts on contact. But the centerpiece steals the breath. Hamburgers, juicy patties on soft buns, topped with cheese that oozes like liquid gold, flanked by French fries golden from the fryer. Bottles of Coca-Cola clink on ice, fizzing when opened, their dark sweetness a siren's call. The interpreter explains patiently, "Standard GI breakfast. Eat what you want." Yamamoto's hands tremble as he loads his tray, the weight foreign, the portions obscene, enough for 3 men in his old unit. Seated at communal tables, the Japanese soldiers attack the meal with a mix of ravenous hunger and wary restraint. Yamamoto bites into the hamburger, juices dripping down his chin, the blend of beef, salt, and bun exploding like a revelation. Tears prick his eyes unbidden, not from pain, but from the sheer impossibility. In the Imperial Army, officers dined on meager rice balls while troops foraged for roots. Here, even prisoners feasted like emperors. Beside him, Hara, his wound bandaged fresh, chokes on a fry, coughing through sobs. This is what they give captives?" he whispers, voice cracking. The room fills with muffled gasps, some men laughing hysterically, others bowing their heads in silent weeping. One private from the Guadalcanal campaign, his body scarred from jungle rot, stares at his Coke bottle, murmuring, "The Emperor's finest couldn't dream of this." Captain Jenkins observes from the sidelines, notebook in hand, flanked by Tanaka the interpreter. The interrogations begin subtly, woven into the meal's afterglow. "Tell us about your unit," Jenkins asks Yamamoto through Tanaka, his tone conversational, not coercive. No thumbscrews, no water torture like the Kempe ties methods back home. Just questions amid the clatter of trays, with seconds offered freely. Yamamoto hesitates, but the food loosens tongues. Sito, sipping his second Coke, lets slip details of supply shortages on Luzon, trucks bogged in mud, rations halved to stretch the siege. Jenkins nods, probing gently, "And your officers? What did they say about our forces?" That's when Colonel Tsuji's name surfaces, not from betrayal, but from awe-inspired ramblings. Captured earlier in a daring raid, or so the rumors went, Tsuji had been a firebrand, architect of brutal campaigns from Singapore to Burma. Now, in whispered tales passed among the POWs, he confessed to aides over shared chocolate. America's logistics were a juggernaut. Crates of spam and fruit arriving by shipload while Japan's convoys sank under submarine wolfpacks. "Their abundance dooms us," he'd reportedly said, his strategic mind cracking under the weight of plenty. Yamamoto feels the words echo in his own thoughts as he describes fragmented memories of Iwo Jima's horrors, caves starved of supplies, men reduced to drinking seawater, contrasted with the endless American barrages fueled by bottomless depots. You can almost taste the bitterness mixing with the sweet fizz. These warriors bred on Bushido's stoic blade unraveling over a meal. Doubt blooms like jungle flowers. If the enemy treats prisoners thus, what lies were fed about their barbarity? Hara wipes his eyes, admitting to Tanaka, "We were told you'd eat our livers. Instead, you feed us like kings." Jenkins smiles faintly, noting it all, knowing each revelation chips at the Empire's facade. But as the session winds down, trays cleared, and bellies full for the first time in months, a deeper shadow falls. Whispers spread of re-education classes ahead, films showing America's heartland factories designed to turn loyalty into despair. What if this kindness isn't mercy, but a weapon sharper than any katana? Twilight descends on Camp O'Donnell like a heavy curtain, the jungle's nocturnal symphony rising, crickets chirping in rhythmic mockery, distant howler monkeys echoing the unrest in men's souls. Yamamoto lies on his cot, the fullness in his belly a strange anchor against the swirling doubts. The hamburger's aftertaste lingers, rich and foreign, a reminder of the interrogation's subtle barbs. Captain Jenkins had listened intently, his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses as fragments of truth spilling forth. The failed resupplies at Guadalcanal, where ships laden with rice sank under American torpedoes from submarines like the USS Growler. The skeletal troops on Iwo Jima, rationed to a single cup of barley gruel per day while volcanic ash choked their lungs. Tanaka, the Nisei interpreter, translated with neutral precision, but Yamamoto caught the flicker of pity in his gaze, a Japanese-American, fighting for the enemy, yet speaking their tongue like a brother. The next morning brings no rest. Guards rouse the POWs at 0600 sharp, herding them to a cleared field ringed by palm trees, where folding chairs face a makeshift screen strung between poles. Education time, and MP grunts, passing out more luxuries. Fresh oranges, peeled and segmented, their juice bursting like tiny suns on parched tongues. Saito chews slowly, his suspicion hardening. Propaganda, he hisses to Yamamoto. They'll show us lies, twist our minds. But the fruit's sweetness undermines his words. Back in the Kwantung army, such treats were reserved for officers' banquets, not common soldiers. Hara, limping but stronger from the penicillin, nods agreement, yet his eyes betray curiosity. The group settles, a sea of faded khaki uniforms amid the green, as a projector whirs to life, its beam cutting through the morning mist. The film reels flicker, black and white images assaulting their senses. Narrated in halting Japanese overdub, it opens with sweeping shots of American heartland, endless wheat fields in Kansas, harvested by mechanical combines that dwarfed Japan's hand-scythe paddies. Detroit assembly lines churning out B-24 Liberators at a rate of 1 per hour, wings gleaming under factory lights. This is the arsenal of democracy, the voice intones, crediting figures like Henry Ford and his Willow Run plant, where bombers rolled off like automobiles. Yamamoto's breath catches. The scale dwarfs anything in Osaka shipyards, where workers toiled with rivets and hammers, not automated welds. Then come the supply chains. Convoys of Liberty ships slicing the Pacific, holds crammed with crates of C rations, K rations, even D rations for emergencies, chocolate bars fortified with vitamins designed to sustain a man for days. Clips shift to the front lines, GIs and foxholes on Saipan, casually opening cans of chili con carne with inbuilt keys, washing it down with marted milk tablets dissolved in canteens. Contrast cuts to Japanese footage captured and repurposed, emaciated troops on Leyte boiling leather belts for soup, their faces etched with pellagra's lesions from niacin deficiency. The narrator doesn't mock, it states facts, coldly. Your leaders promised victory through spirit. America's victory comes through strength and sustenance. Whispers erupt among the captives. One sergeant from the 14th Army, his arms bandaged from bayonet scars, mutters lies, but those machines. Colonel Tsuji, seated apart with other officers, watches stone-faced, but aides later recall his clenched jaw. Tsuji, the mastermind of the Bataan Death March's horrors, had once dismissed American materialism as weakness. Now, facing reels of refrigerated ships delivering ice cream to troops in the tropics, yes, ice cream, churned fresh on carriers like the USS Lexington, he confides in a hushed voice. Our Bushido is a sword against a tidal wave. You feel the shift in the air, thick as the humidity. These men, forged in the Emperor's unyielding doctrine, confront a mirror of their own deprivation. The film rolls on, showing POW camps stateside, Japanese internees in California receiving 3 meals a day, balanced with proteins and vegetables, per Geneva standards. No starvation marches, no beatings like those inflicted by the Kempeitai. Hara leans forward, transfixed by images of hot dogs grilled at Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, where captives played baseball and smoked SAMLs. They treat us better than our own quartermasters, he breathes. The words a treasonous spark. Saito shoots him a glare, but even he falters, recalling the maggot-infested rice on Bougainville. The session ends with a final reel. Tokyo's firebombed ruins juxtaposed with San Francisco's untouched skyline, underscoring the industrial chasm. As the lights come up, Jenkins steps forward, Tanaka at his side. "Questions?" he asks mildly, offering cigarettes, Marlboros, smooth and unrationed. Hands rise tentatively. One private asks about the ice cream, half joking, half yearning. Laughter ripples, nervous at first, then genuine. But beneath it, the seeds of doubt take root, flowering into quiet conversations that night. Yamamoto stares at the stars through the wire, wondering if loyalty can survive such revelations. Tsuji's whispers circulate. Japan's collapse is inevitable, their resources are endless. Yet as re-education deepens, a final test approaches, the loyalty screenings, where choices could mean freedom or further captivity. What happens when awe turns to allegiance?
Stars wheel overhead as the camp settles into uneasy quiet.
the wire fences humming faintly with the night's electric charge. Yamamoto tosses on his cot, the film's images replaying like ghosts. Those endless American convoys, ships heavy with spam and chocolate, slicing through waves that had swallowed Japan's own meager fleets. The oranges from morning still tang on his tongue, a citrus sharpness cutting through the dull ache of indoctrination. Whispers snake through the barracks, Hara debating in low tones with Sito, their voices a murmur against the distant rumble of supply trucks. If this is defeat, Hara says, his wound throbbing less each day, why does it feel like salvation? Sito hisses back, loyal to the core, but even his conviction wavers, eroded by the relentless tide of plenty. Morning reveille blasts at 0530, horns echoing across the compound like a call to judgment. The POWs assemble in the yard, mud sucking at their boots, faces gaunt but filling out from days of 3 squares a day. Captain Jenkins stands before them, flanked by more interpreters and a team of psychologists from the Army's morale branch, men trained in the subtle art of psychological warfare. Tanaka translates crisply, "Today, we talk loyalty. No punishment for truth, speak freely." The air thickens with tension. In the Imperial Code, such words are heresy. But the setup disarms, tables laden with breakfast extras, donuts glazed and sticky, fresh from a field bakery, milk in cartons, cold and creamy, a luxury undreamed in Tokyo's ration queues. Yamamoto takes a donut hesitantly, sugar crystals crunching, the dough soft as clouds. It's a calculated move, this loyalty screening, food as the velvet glove over the iron fist of interrogation. Groups splinter off, each captive paired with an officer in shaded tents. Yamamoto faces Lieutenant Ellis Reed, a soft-spoken intel specialist from Ohio, his desk scattered with Hershey wrappers offered casually. "Tell me about home," Reed begins through Tanaka, lighting a cigarette and passing the pack. Yamamoto inhales deeply, the smoke curling like forbidden thoughts. Questions flow gently. Unit strengths on Luzon now irrelevant with the island fallen. Morale reports from the front, but Reed steers deeper. "What do you think of our rations?" Yamamoto pauses, the orange's sweetness betraying him. "Unbelievable," he admits, the words slipping out. Reed nods, probing. "Better than yours?" The floodgates creak. Yamamoto speaks of Guadalcanal's starvation, where men ate grass and boot leather, dysentery craving more than bullets. Of Iwo Jima's caves where sulfur-tainted water and handfuls of soybeans sustained suicidal charges against marine flamethrowers. Others crack wider. Hara in his session weeps openly over a glass of milk, recounting bonsai attacks fueled by empty bellies, how American artillery, supplied by those endless depots, pounded them into dust. "Your food, it's why you win," he blurts, allegiance fracturing like thin ice. Sito resists longer, reciting emperor's worship like a mantra, but even he falters when shown photos of captured supplies, crates of sea rations seized from Japanese holds, originally American aid rerouted. The screenings yield gold for Allied intel, troop movements whispered, codes half revealed, but the real victory is internal. Colonel Tsuji in a private grilling unleashes a torrent. As the architect of the Philippine campaign, he'd seen Japan's logistics crumble, convoys torpedoed by subs like the USS Barb, leaving armies to wither. "Your abundance," he tells his interrogator, voice laced with defeat. "It's not decadence, it's doom for us." Later declassified reports note Tsuji's breakdown, his whispers to aides spreading like wildfire, the empire's collapse foretold in every chocolate bar. You sense the fracture widening, a chasm in the soul of an army bred on scarcity. These men, once kamikaze-ready, now question the divine wind that left them starving while enemies dined. Whispers evolve into debates. One group huddles over smuggled notes debating defection. Another listens to radio broadcasts from Saipan, Allied voices promising fair treatment. Jenkins compiles reports for higher-ups, POW morale plummeting, cooperation rising. But as screenings conclude, a new phase dawns. Work details, voluntary with extra rations as bait. Yamamoto volunteers for kitchen duty, handling the very abundance that haunts him. Peeling potatoes by the sack, frying bacon that sizzles like accusation. Strength returns to limbs, but so does guilt. Hara joins him, their knives flashing in rhythm, sharing stories of home, wives waiting, children hungry under blockade. Doubt festers. If America feeds even enemies thus, what lies await the homeland? Evening brings reflection under lantern glow, the camp of microcosm of the Pacific's shifting tides. From Guadalcanal's first captures to Iwo's final holdouts, these moments accumulate, seeds of awe sprouting into forests of disillusionment. Tsuji's aides circulate his realizations, eroding the Bushido wall, yet loyalty's remnants cling. Some plot escape, dreaming of rejoining the fight. As Yamamoto stares at the wire, a jeep rolls in with fresh supplies, crates stamped U.S. Army, endless as the ocean. The question burns, can broken spirits mend, or will this kindness forge unwilling traitors? The final reckoning. Awe turns to acceptance in the empire's fall. Dawn's light filters through the Quonset hut slats, casting striped shadows on the floor like bars of a different prison, one of the mind. Yamamoto rises slowly, muscles no longer screaming from malnutrition, his uniform hanging looser now from added weight rather than loss. The kitchen duty from yesterday lingers in his senses, the sizzle of eggs in vast pans, the aroma of coffee brewing in urns that never run dry, crates of canned fruit stacked like ammunition bunkers. Hara joins him at the wash basins, splashing water that's clear and abundant, not the brackish puddles scavenged from bomb craters. Feels wrong, doesn't it? Hara murmurs, scrubbing his face. Stronger every day, but for what? Sito, overhearing from his cot, turns away, his silence a wall crumbling brick by brick. The day unfolds in routine turned ritual, more education sessions, but now voluntary, drawing crowds with the lure of extra treats. Projectors roll again, this time with color films airlifted from Honolulu. Vibrant reels of Hawaiian pineapple fields, workers harvesting under sun that doesn't scorch like the Pacific's fury. California orchards heavy with apples and oranges, shipped across oceans in refrigerated holds. The narrator's voice, calm and inexorable, details the math of might. U.S. factories producing 50,000 tons of rations monthly, from Spam canned in Chicago to chocolate bars molded in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Contrast hits hard. Captured Japanese newsreels show home front rationing, civilians queuing for seaweed soup, children with swollen bellies from kwashiorkor. Yamamoto feels the punch, his own letters home, censored but desperate, begging for any scrap from family farms depleted by war taxes. Colonel Tsuji appears in the afternoon assembly, not as prisoner but reluctant oracle. Escorted by Jenkins, he addresses a select group of officers, his voice a shadow of the firebrand who orchestrated the fall of Singapore. Through Tanaka's translation, Tsuji speaks plainly. I saw it in Burma, in the monsoons. Our trucks mired, supplies rotting before they reach the lines. America's? They fly them in, drop them from C-47s like rain. He describes his capture near Maitkina, ambushed by Merrill's marauders, but the real defeat came in the first American meal. A K-ration pack with cheese, biscuits, and gum. More nutrition in one foil than his staff had in days. Endless resources, he repeats, eyes distant, foreshadowing the empire's unraveling. Whispers had already spread his diary excerpts, smuggled among aides, entries lamenting Japan's dwindling oil, the submarine blockade starving the home islands. Aides nod, one captain from the Iwo garrison breaking down. We held those caves with nothing but will. They buried us with plenty. You taste the bitter irony in the tropical air, these fierce warriors turned by treats into harbingers of doom. Work details evolved into discussions. Yamamoto peels carrots alongside GIs, learning phrases like plenty to go around, while sharing halting stories of Guadalcanal's beachheads, where bonsai charges met walls of canned firepower. Doubt metastasizes. Radio intercepts played openly announce Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic shadows sealing fate. Hara stares at the horizon, whispering, if captivity is this, what was our sacrifice? Sito, the holdout, finally bends during a shared smoke break, admitting the propaganda's lie. America's decadence was dominance. Tsuji's final confession circulates like gospel. In hushed tents, he predicts surrender, urging aides to survive for rebuilding. From beaches to volcanic islands, these awe-struck moments cascade, sowing defeat seeds across the Pacific. As weeks blur into months, the camp transforms, POWs aiding in victory gardens, planting seeds from American packets, harvesting vegetables that mock their homeland's famine. Yamamoto writes his first uncensored letter, describing the abundance not as betrayal but truth. The war ends with VJ Day fireworks lighting the sky, guards sharing beer in celebration, captives watching in stunned silence. Tsuji, repatriated later, vanishes into hiding, his realizations echoing in post-war trials. For men like Yamamoto, Hara, and Sito, the luxury of rations becomes a lifelong scar. Turning points where disbelief birthed acceptance, and an empire's warriors glimpsed their own end in every gleaming can.